Welcome back, everybody, to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just talked about basketball for the first half of our show. We talked about, in our first segment, UConn going back-to-back for the first time since 2006-2007 when the Florida Gators did it. Talked about what their team looks like, where Zach Edey might go in the draft, and much more if UConn is a blue-collar school as well. In our second segment, we talked about the depoy debate between Victor Wembenyama and Rudy Gobert, as well as a little bit of the MVP debate and the way they do awards in general in the NBA. But coming up in this third segment, we are done with basketball. We are moving into baseball. The summer is almost here. The sport has been going on for 2 weeks, and we have our first official Sports by GSMC Podcast Network Power Rankings. It's a little early in the season to do power rankings the traditional way, and I did do a 1 to 30 power rankings, but instead of numbering them 1 through 30, which they are there, so if you want that full list, it will be there. I will show you that. But I separated them into tiers, and we'll get into all of that in just a second. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message. It'll pop up on the bottom of the screen here for you, me, everybody else around the world to see. You can control what we talk about here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network with your tip and donation. Anything you want to ask, burning question about sports, about life, about anything, we will have a discussion about it. All you need to do is leave that tip or donation at gsmcpodcast.net. We appreciate anything that you do give. Once again, that link is gsmcpodcast.net. Like I was saying, April MLB Power Rankings. 2 weeks into the season is a little early to really see how these teams are going to end up, but I feel pretty good about these power rankings. We've made a list. I've separated it into 1, 2, 3, 4 tiers. Tier 1 is contenders. No doubt contenders in my mind. These teams are primed to make a deep playoff run. Second tier is playoff teams. And the third tier is anything could happen. The meh tier, the oh my goodness, this is chaos tier. There's a lot of teams in that tier. And then we shove it all the way down to the bottom with, and that tier I guess we could call the wild card tier. And the final tier is tank tier. Tank tier, there are 5 teams. Contender tier, I've got 4. I've got 5 teams in the playoff tier, and the other 15 are all in the wild card tier. So we'll take a look at all the tiers in just a second. We'll start at the bottom, right? As all good power rankings go, with my tank tier. These teams are basically done. Call it a season. They're not going anywhere. I've got 5 teams, and I bet you could guess those 5 teams. We're going to start here in the basement. Like I said, I did do 1 through 30. There's 5 of these teams. I have the Athletics at number 30. They might not actually be the worst team in baseball this year, but with everything that's going on with the ownership, whatever momentum they have is gonna fall apart. So I have them here at 30, just below the White Sox, who I did for a second have there. White Sox I have at 29. The Marlins I have at 28. The Marlins have been rocked with injuries. Their big strength pitching, 3 or 4 of their guys are all down. Sandy Alcantara, Yuri Perez went down recently. They are a very, very injured team in pitching, and we talked about pitcher injury yesterday. It's a mess for the Marlins. Nothing went right. They made the playoffs last year, and then they just fell off a cliff, which is a shame, because they seemed like they were building a lot of momentum. 27, I have the Rockies. Speaking of a team with no direction, the Rockies are a team with no direction. The Rockies make moves to seem like they want to compete, but then they just don't do anything. They extend their players, they just don't attract those free agents, they don't make the big splash. Their front office is a mess there in that tier. And at the very top of the tank tier are my beloved Washington Nationals. I couldn't put them any higher than 26. Not that I think 26 is the wrong spot for them. they're bad. They're really bad. The organization continually makes mind-boggling decisions about their prospects. I really thought they'd call at least James Wood up for the season after the spring training he had. But they're bad. They're really bad. Their pitching that their silver lining for them is they had young pitching that could make a big step, and right now none of it has. In fact, you could even argue it's taken a step backwards. So the Nationals are not a very good team. They're there at 26, and that concludes our tank tier. In our next tier, this is the vast majority of teams. This is the wild card tier. This covers teams all the way from the Angels at 25, who only save themselves from the tank tier because they have a guy named Mike Trout on their roster. Mike Trout, who is having himself a really, really solid season back at the helm of the Angels, I guess you could call it. After Shohei Ohtani leaves, he is captaining that ship again. He is the undisputed best player there. He is keeping them out of that bottom tier, but not by much. Cardinals are a mess pitching. Their bats just have not been able to bounce back. I really thought they were going to have a bounce-back season. They're there at 24. Just above them, I have the New York Mets. Again, another team that's just been unable to put it together. Pirates and Padres at 22 and 21. The Royals at 20. The Royals are a much improved team. I just think they've run into a little bit of... they've got a lot of young guys. I don't think they were ready for the season. I think we'll start to see them climb as time goes on. Same thing with the Reds, who I have at 19 right above them. I expect both of those teams to make a push towards the top of this tier in a little bit of time. The Reds, their defense is a mess. Their pitching has improved, but their defense has gotten worse. Injuries are not helping them. Guardians I have at 18, Brewers at 17, Giants at 16, Mariners at 15 have had a really good start to their season. It's not the greatest start it's not the start they would want to have, but there's some spots, even if they're not winning games. They've had a little bit of a tougher schedule, and I expect them to bounce back a little bit. Twins at 14, Blue Jays at 13, Tigers at 12. The Tigers, I don't know if I've talked about it here on the show. They went out, they were one of the hottest teams to start. They have Cy Young candidates everywhere. Tyler Skubal is maybe the front runner for that at this point. Their bats need to get going a little bit, but they have been hitting. They'd be a little higher on my list if they didn't just lose a series to the A's. I think that was a trap series. I think they'll bounce back. The Tigers have been really impressive to me this season. I have them up here at 12 for now. Like I said, they're still in this wild card tier. Anything can change. The Cubs I have at 11. I was down on them, but they have improved their pitching. They lost Marcus Stroman. I thought that would make their pitching worse. But no, they got better. They brought in a guy from Japan who is killing it on the mound in Cy Young contention once again. So lots, again, it's really early to say that, but Shoto Imenaga, is pitching lights out. So the Cubs are up here at 11 for me, heading into the top 10. At number 10, I have the Boston Red Sox. The Red Sox, who Tyler O'Neill has been a huge, huge boon for them, hitting home runs like it's nobody's business. I believe he set a record with 5 straight home runs on opening day, 5 straight seasons, a home run on opening day in 5 straight seasons. The Red Sox have holes, but the way they're playing right now, as long as the bats keep swinging, they might be able to compete for a wild card spot there in the AL. Then the final team that I have on this wild card tier is the Rays. And it's nothing against the Rays. The Rays always figure it out. I almost put them in the playoff tier just because it's the Rays. But they haven't jumped out at me as anything special, so I struggle to put them up there. Maybe I should have put them in the next tier, but the Rays are a very good team. They'll always figure it out. The Rays front office is maybe the best in the major leagues, just behind the Dodgers maybe, but very, very good at baseball. the Rays are. The lineup continues to hit even without some of their big pieces. Pitching, always pitching with the Rays. They are 3 steps ahead of everyone else, it seems, every single season. It's really impressive how they continue to get the best out of their pitchers with analytics, and they don't pay people that much. So I am always super impressed by the way that the Rays run things. They are in the top 10 at number 9 in my first power rankings. At number 8, I have the Arizona Diamondbacks, the runners-up in last year's World Series. They came out of the gates with fire. They scored 14 runs in one inning in opening day, but that was against that was against the Rockies. So we don't want to take too much from that. They've taken a step back from the Rockies series. They're still a very, very good team. Pitching is not exactly where you want it to be, but still a solid start to the season for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Into the top, like I said, that's the start of the playoff tier. At 7, I have the Astros who have already thrown a no-hitter. They started off 0-4 after losing. They got swept in their opening series against the Yankees who are playing incredible baseball even without their ace Garrett Cole right now. The Astros have bounced back pretty solid from there. Like I said, they threw a no-hitter. Ronel Blanco almost threw another no-hitter back-to-back. I believe he had one through 7 innings before it got broken up. That would have been an incredible story. But the Astros here at number 7. I have the defending World Series champions Rangers at number 6. They've been just proving why they won the World Series. They are a very, very good baseball team. The Rangers are. They continue to, win games, and they win them handily. They've played 10 games now. They haven't had an opportunity for a save, so they're either winning or they're losing. And when they win by a lot. And that's not the worst position to be in. They'll be fine. At number 5, I have the Philadelphia Phillies. They did just lose a game to the Nationals, but that lineup, Trey Turner, if he can get going again, they're going to be a very scary team, just like they were last year. Their pitching, especially at the top of the order, is insane. You have your big 3 up there, obviously. It's tough to go against this team. But now we're getting into what I'm calling the contenders tier. The top 4, pretty undisputed, I think, at least. These teams seemingly are the best by quite a wide margin. The Orioles I have at number 4. They just continue to dominate. They're a super young team with a lot of great young prospects that they might call up soon. Their minor league team put up like 30 runs against someone. Insane. The Orioles pitching with Corbin Burns has only improved. They are so good. I have the Yankees at number 3. The addition of Juan Soto has been probably the best addition of the offseason, including Shohei Ohtani. Not to say that Shohei Ohtani's addition has not been incredible for the Dodgers, who are actually second here on the list. But Juan Soto has been a revelation in New York, and maybe he'll stay. That's the report. He seemed to love New York. New York seems to love him. Seems like it's a good spot for him right now. The Dodgers I have in number 2. They have Mookie Betts. And that's really all I need to say. Mookie Betts is leading the MLB in just about everything right now. It's scary how good he is at baseball. And of course you also have Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman. That roster is stacked. The Dodgers are my number 2. The Braves are my number 1. And they're the only roster that I think can go toe-to-toe with the Dodgers. It sucks that they just lost Spencer Strider. That's a huge loss for them. That's a loss that they might not be able to recover from. But their pitching is so strong that I think they'll be fine. You still have Chris Sale in what was the 4 hole, now the 5. What was the 4 hole, now the 3. So nothing to be too worried about if you are a Braves fan. I have them at number 1 in the power rankings. But yeah, that is the first Sports by GSMC Podcast Network power rankings. Braves at number 1, Dodgers 2, Yankees 3, Orioles 4. Those are the top 4. That's the special contender tier that I have made. But anyway, in our 4th and final segment today, we're going to transition out of baseball, talk a little bit about stadiums, stadium building, everything that goes into that. If you kept up with the news recently, there's been a whole drove of stadiums being denied by the city, not the owner, not the team. So we'll talk about the effects of that, what these teams and cities might do, if we'll see movement. We'll talk about all that and more coming up next on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.